Morning, everyone. Hope this finds you well. I just wanted to upload a selection of book recommendations for you, bearing in mind that you've got a little bit of reading time on your hands. Some of these books that I'm going to share with you this morning are ones that I've really enjoyed, and they're ones that hopefully you'll be able to pick up fairly cheaply or even for free if you've got a Kindle, or you can find them online perhaps. So let's take a look at some of them. Now, with all of the books on here, they're for different tastes. You may not like all of them, that's okay. But I just wanted to give you some ideas of a starting point. People often have said to me, "Oh, so what should I read? What should I read?" Here we go. So one of the first ones that I would recommend to you left a big impact on me, actually. It was one I read when I was in year 13. So it's by a Colombian writer, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Chronicle of a Death Foretold. It's a short one. It's like a novella. It's kind of like his signature style as it came to be known, or it wasn't the first thing that he wrote, but he's better known for other books such as 100 Years of Solitude or Love in a Time of Cholera. But this is a good starting point. It's got this kind of mystical, fictional flavor to it, set in kind of a backwater of a small, unnamed South American town. So yeah, check it out. It's fascinating. It's to do with how society and people interact with one another, how people kind of judge one another very quickly, jump to conclusions. So there's kind of like an investigative element to it. It's cool. I think you'd enjoy it. As I say, it won't take you long to read if you don't. The next one, read this one, I'm trying to think, when I was like 15, 16. It was really famous for many years. It's sort of seen as one of like the classic American novels. It's called The Catcher in the Rye. If you ask your parents, they may have read it. It's kind of gone off the radar slightly for schoolwork and stuff at the moment, but it's really worth a read. It's the main character, the narrator, is a guy called Holden Caulfield, and he's kind of like out to stick it to the man, out to kind of get the world, kind of like nihilistic, sort of like doesn't see any point in anything, see everything as like a bit phony or fake. But yeah, really fascinating. Kind of caught like a section of American society at the time when it was written, kind of 1940s, 50s. And you might enjoy it. Again, it's not a particularly long book. It's a little bit dated in places, perhaps, with some of the language and stuff that's used, but it's still really important to kind of have an idea of how language and literature is developed. So for that, I think you might find it useful. Another classic one is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, Nigerian writer. He died early 2000s, but he was an amazing writer. He's got other books that I'd recommend to you if you enjoy this one. Anthills of the Savannah is another good one of his, as is Arrow of God. But Things Fall Apart, that's a great starting point. If you want to read something that kind of explores the effects of colonization of different countries and the changes in culture and all the different things that are packaged up with that, so religion and morality and people's behavior to one another, their cultural identity, all of these things are wrapped up in a really creative and effective way in this book. It follows the story of the main character, protagonist Okonkwo, who's referred to throughout as a strong man, which is such an amazing kind of like symbol. You can take that and understand it in so many different ways. Check it out, really good read, and it's something that might be a bit different from what you've read before, particularly if you're used to reading more kind of contemporary British or American novelists. Robert Harris is a brilliant author. Imperium is the first in his trilogy about the Roman politician and speechwriter and kind of all-round, I guess, polymath, someone who's capable of doing all kinds of amazing things. Cicero. So Cicero sort of interacted with Julius Caesar in particular, and this trilogy, as I said, Imperium is the first in the trilogy, and the book's an amazing way of kind of understanding this key period of Roman history and kind of the fall of Roman democracy and its move into a dictatorship under Caesar, kind of the re-emergence of the Roman emperors. But yeah, amazing. It really helped me to kind of understand the history of the period. Robert Harris does loads of amazing research to make sure actually the characters, whilst they are based in history and they come across as fictional, there is a really good kind of underpinning for it. So check it out if you like historical fiction, if you like something, again, that's maybe a little bit different, or perhaps about a period in history you haven't really spent that much time looking at before. Another one, if you like dystopian fiction, this one's a short one. You can definitely pick it up for free on Kindle. At least you could kind of the other week. But Ray Bradbury is an American writer. Fahrenheit 451 is made into kind of like interesting film. I can't remember if it was film or TV series with Michael B. Jordan last year. Didn't have great reviews. I haven't actually watched it, so I can't judge it too harshly. But the book itself is really good. If you've read 1984, if you've read Brave New World, or if you haven't read either of those. But Ray Bradbury's take on it, I like it. It's a little bit more subtle. The premise of it is that, as you can kind of see from the title in the front cover, it's to do with flames and fire, and the role of a firefighter is actually someone who creates flames and is tasked with burning books. So actually the education and sort of people being able to essentially think for themselves is more limited. So if you like dystopian stuff, if you haven't read any of Ray Bradbury's sci-fi before, it's really good. And then just the last couple for you. I put them together because they relate pretty closely. So Homage to Catalonia really sets the scene for George Orwell's later writing, his experience of fighting on the side of kind of socialist and communist in the Spanish Civil War, where General Franco, who later became sort of dictator of Spain for a long period of time, there was tension between various groups and actually who was fighting with pure intentions. And Orwell became pretty disillusioned with what he saw as kind of ideas of equality almost just being passed off as like just nice phrases, and actually who was, as I said, who was kind of motivated purely. But Homage to Catalonia kind of looks at Orwell's kind of growing disillusionment with ideas of communism and socialism, and actually how they could work out in person, and as a result influences his later writing with pieces like 1984. So it's a good starting point if you haven't looked at any Orwell yet, or if you want to understand what kind of makes him tick a bit more. Another recommendation if you're thinking about George Orwell, if you like his writing, his book, selection of essays as Burmese Days. There's a particular essay in there which is called, I think, Killing an Elephant. Really strange, but really kind of troubling. He was a policeman in Burma for a period of time after the Second World War, and sort of really seeing the effects, again, of colonization. If you enjoy Things Fall Apart, like I mentioned in the previous slide, that could be one to explore as well. That was one I looked at university, and if you kind of want to push yourself and read something a bit different or more challenging, you might want to look at some of Orwell's essays and shorter writing, some of his non-fiction, which obviously Homage to Catalonia is as well, because it's autobiographical. The other one on the slide is For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway, who was an American writer who also served in Spain, fighting alongside kind of communist socialist groups against fascists who were later, at the time, led by General Franco. The Spanish Civil War, if you get the chance after watching this to look up Pablo Picasso's painting Guernica. Guernica was seen as kind of one of the main tragedies of the war. I mean, the entire Civil War was a tragedy and left enormous scars on Spain, but Guernica was a city that was bombed by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis against the communist and socialist forces, or against the city that was seen as sympathizing with them. And Pablo Picasso's painting kind of conveys some of the tragedy and the gruesomeness of the whole conflict. For Whom the Bell Tolls is Ernest Hemingway's autobiographical account of his time serving in Spain. So if you wanted to read Homage to Catalonia, you want something comparable to it, but written from a slightly different angle, slightly less aggressive perhaps, you might enjoy Ernest Hemingway's one. So thanks for watching, and I'll be sticking to some more book reviews, or book suggestions perhaps would be a better way of describing it, up on here in coming weeks to give you some ideas. If you end up reading any of them, please do let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your reflections. Hope to keep updated from you. Thanks.